Okay, so this is our first coffee talk. We're gonna go ahead and just do some things. So the first thing you need to know about coffee talk is it's very informal, just like QCA. You can go ahead and ask questions, put a Q colon in front of it. In fact, coffee talk and QCA are pretty much the same thing, just for a different time zone, and they have a separate playlist. So on YouTube. So that's really the main difference. This does happen early in the morning. Um, Both QCA and Coffee Talk are designed to be podcasts eventually. I have to split time across managing content. Well, I hate that word, but you want the recording banner on? Let's put the recording banner on. There you go. And so I mean the video content is not important in Coffee Talk and QCA. So I do put a recording banner blinking to let everybody know that we're recording a podcast for YouTube. And so if you want to participate audibly, the thing you can do is you can go to the Discord, and if you don't know how to find that, stop by Twitch or look down below or anywhere around on the screen here. You should be able to find a link to the Twitch thing, and then go to Coffee Talk. It is more fun when we have people who want to join us on stage. So if you're brave and you want to be permanently recorded for time and eternity, welcome onto YouTube, having a conversation about something. I don't always invoke conversation. That's how I'm just talking. So, I can't promise you're going to get a voice in edgewise, but that is the goal. The goal is that this become the primary content for a podcast and a YouTube and all of that. And this is just like a morning show on the radio. There's really no agenda. There's some general topics that I might want to talk about. But it's meant to be kind of informal. Originally, I wanted Coffee Talk to be more theme based, thematic. It would have like a specific thing that we would say, but really, they're pretty much the same. So QCA and if there is something that's really thematic, and I want to just kind of just drone on, it'll probably happen in Coffee Talk. I mean, QCA the priority is always on the questions that come in. So if your time, to tell you the truth, I think both of them, we should probably keep that. So if you have a question, we have a small enough community where I can read your questions, put a Q in front of the question, or go into the topical room in Discord and put a question there. So this is how it works. So that any questions that come in live have priority over anything else I'm talking about, as long as I can finish the theme or the idea. And the second priority is to, unless Leon or Chris raids, which has happened a couple times, in which case it becomes impossible, right? And that's fine. If you want to raid me during the middle of a show, that's fine too. I mean, this is, again, it's just informal. It's just it's an hour long thing, hopefully to get people to be able to participate. There's never going to be much of any visual interest here. In fact, if you're looking at the screen right now, you know that it's just my messy, dark room that I'm building out my new system, my new rig. I've got two 21U racks that I'm building out a full Kubernetes cluster with 25 nodes, physical nodes, and I am building out a Sept with 6 terabytes of storage from old MSI gaming systems that I have. And I have a 28 core, 128 gigabyte RAM server that'll be doing fast things like that. You want me to zoom in? Okay, let me zoom in for the people that are here. This is meant to be audio, so I'm going to just describe things. And it's kind of grainy because, it's dark right now. I'm not going to turn the lights on. And so, yeah, we got the stuff over there. You can see the main blinking lights are about the server rack. That's okay if you don't understand. And by the way, the talk does not always have to be tech, right? So sometimes, I mean, particularly in the QCA, the conversation, because that happens at night, the conversation gets kind of after darky, it gets kind of, so I've been IRL streaming the rack build, and if you're interested in that, by the way, so I am gonna put a few plugs in for things since we're just starting out. we do have people here at this time that are not here normally, so I'll just take an opportunity to share the schedule with you. So if you do the schedule command or the cal command, CAL, you'll get a link to the current schedule, which I can just actually let's just do that. Yep, there you go. And you can get lots of changes to the schedule. Yeah. We've talked about some pretty crazy things after dark because when we get drunk, none of that's on YouTube, by the way. So if you want the crazy stuff that never gets saved anywhere but in a Twitch VOD, and even then, not even then sometimes, that stuff happens live, and there's just no way I'm gonna create any digital proof of that behavior. So I don't, look, another thing too you need to know about me is so I am not keen on mixing work and Twitch. I mean, I do the skills and stuff that go with it, of course, but I am not keen on my work, live crossing over. There's people from my work who are on the stream. I'm waving at you if you're there. There's people, I got my job from Twitch, but I don't like to, that allows me to be crazy and things like that, things that I would never do. And I do want to mention, however, that the Coffee Talk and QCA, for the most part, are designed to be suitable for work. So this is the kind of thing you should be able to put. We've had people put this stuff, on the screen at work, and it makes me think maybe I need to, actually get a good studio like Twit TV has or something. I hate. Never mind. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to stay positive. I'm going to stay positive. So Coffee Talk has at 8 a.m. So we're going to be doing home lab stuff tonight. So I talk about the schedule a lot, but lately because there's been so many changes to it. So this is the schedule. We have something every night at 8 p.m. and on the weekdays, and then on Saturday we have the boost, the beginner boost, which most of you know about. We're on the 4th week of Go programming. And so let me just summarize really quick. So we do Hack the Box and hacking topics on Monday and Wednesday night at 8 to 9:30 at least. Sometimes I start a little earlier, but at least by 8. And then we do a QCA every night at 9:30 to 10:30. And we do Coffee Talk 8 to 9 in the morning. I may actually bump that up, but we'll see. Probably not. I'm probably going to keep those times. And so that's it. But yeah, so Tuesday and Thursday is Home Lab Init, and that's just me building out my home lab and answering questions about it and listening to people who have suggestions. Who, by the way, a good friend of mine who was also on the stream suggested that how's it going, Raider House? Suggested that I do OPNsense instead of pfSense, and so I went and looked at the YouTube on it and stuff. And ended up concluding very solidly that, yeah, I definitely want OPNsense. It's so cool. And I'm going to be going over some of that stuff later. I just cannot believe how much better it is than pfSense, in my opinion. Everybody knows I have opinions. I'm not the kind of soft pedal, controversy. I have opinions, and you're going to know what they are, and then you can go. And I do talk a lot. I've been criticized recently, even in fact, in my comments on Boost, for just talking a lot. And that's my style. So this is the first coffee talk. So I want to tell you these things up front so you know what you're getting into. Because I don't want people to be, upset about, not having what they want. Yes, I'm definitely a fan of OPNsense. So yeah, we had some people suggesting that let's talk about the controversy between OPNsense and pfSense for a bit, because that's something I did want to talk about. Yeah. Let me tell you the story, and I'll go ahead and zoom in for this. So, and here's my cup of coffee for today. I probably have a different cup every day. I should show them off actually, because my wife makes some of them. Not this one. This one says, "Study hard and earn more." It's a Chinese cup that my stepson got. It's really funny. So speaking of studying hard and earning more, so having your own, um, you know, rack or a system at home is kind of a requirement if you want to do infrastructure or engineering. So what is OPNsense and pfSense? Let's talk about that. So, and I'm going to have to describe it. You can certainly go out and look for it online and read about it, but let me just tell it to you. So pfSense is a BSD Unix based system for putting a firewall on a small computer. And there are a number of computers out there that you can put it on. You can put it on, you can put it on a VM if you want. I happen to buy this like really, really sexy. Let me go see if I can find the name of it. This sexy. I mean, it cost me quite a bit considering how small it is and everything. But my gosh, was it cool? It make no sense. I know. That's why I got it. Yeah, the coffee mug. Yeah. So so let me see if I can go here and find it. Go to my recent purchases. I'm just looking up the exact name of this device that I recently bought. And by the way, I don't have an affiliate link or anything like that. Maybe I'll have one someday, but not right now. And so I'm not telling you this because of that. So the one that I bought something called the Protectly Vault. Uh, Here, let me get a share thing here for you for those who are with me. Um, give me a second. Share. It took me forever to find the share link on Amazon, and I finally found it. Did you know it has one? So paste. So that is the link to the device, and you can just go look at that. So here is a copy of the thing. So I'm just showing it on the screen here. Let me just describe it. So this is a 4-port. That means it has 4 independent network interfaces in it. From the right to the left, it's WAN, LAN, opt1, opt2, and you can set these things up. Actually, it's really cool. Both, when you set up pfSense or OPNsense, it actually prompts you to unplug the wire. You plug it in and push enter, and it configures it automatically. Yeah, it's pretty damn expensive. Yeah, and I mean it's very, very solid. I don't know if you can see the back. The back has got two USB ports. It's got a serial COM port, which is very rare to find on any kind of device. And yeah, oh god, it's got a great SSD in it, which is wicked fast. And it has 2 HD ports, which will also do VGA. It has a sound thing, and it's really cool because it does make noises when you start and stop it. It's kind of fun. Yeah, it's super expensive, but this is literally the most important computer, second most important computer in my house with regard to networking. Every single packet goes through this thing, and so I figured it was worth it. It actually, I got this one with the 32 gig SSD, and I wanted to get a big CPU because you can actually build it. You can totally build it yourself, but not nearly to this quality. And I wanted. I mean, come on, this is going to be really. It's got to be really strong. So what it does is you can actually set it up. I cannot wait to show you. In fact, I don't mind doxing my IP a little bit because I'm like totally secure now. That's another topic altogether. So here is the OPNsense. I'm showing you the OPNsense dashboard. It has got all your DHCP leases. The VM dropping packets for a hypervisor was getting busy. Yes. Yeah, you have, yeah, but VM. So I don't know if I'm going to end up using a VPN, but some of the things that are really, really cool about it is that you can actually see all of the inbound traffic, and you can like monitor it in real time. So you can see the different health settings of your whole system. You can see the. Look. You're gonna get my IP number, but that's fine. People have seen my IP before. By the way, this is a different topic altogether. I asked NahumSec directly. There's a clip of it actually. Should I be worried about doxing my IP address? And he said no, categorically. There were 1,000 people on the stream, and he said it might be an OPSEC thing if you don't want people to know where you live. But obviously, I've doxed where I live very much. So there's really no worry about letting people know that. Other people are still concerned because they still want to kind of keep their location secret, and I can zero in on you pretty good with an IP address if I wanted to know about those kind of things. But you can run your own VPN. I haven't gotten into the OPNsense interface. So let me tell you my sad story. So I bought the thing and I went. Everybody said you get pfSense. Um, when you see the light, yeah, and uh, comfortable. What we talk? Oh, about yeah. I have no worries. In fact, we actually tried to hack me the other day. We went on a cloud server and I tried to hack myself. It was really fun actually, and we made it making we made a sort of a honeypot, which is a computer that attracts hackers, and out in the cloud really quickly, and so we turned from hacking myself to hacking random people that were scanning me, and we found some pretty interesting things. We didn't get in anything, but we did find something. It actually might be a regular thing. I had a lot of positive feedback about that stream because it was more fun than like going through boring, SQL injection, training on Hackabox. So we might actually do more of that. I really do enjoy, scanning people that scan me and see if we can find some entry points into it. I learned a little bit more at Metasploit than I've used before. Anyway, so there's a lot of things that there you can SSH into it and run PF. Actually, I'm using the PF terms, PF top or OPN top, and it will actually show you all your inbound connections, so you can see where your bandwidth is going. You can do analysis. You can set up filters on things. You can set up. There's a complete log of every single device that's ever connected to you or that's connecting into you. This is why I went ahead and got splurged and got the money for a bigger device, because with an SSD and everything, because you can log all of that crap. You can log it all and you can actually trace it all. And I don't know, I really liked that. So, it's got all kinds of things. OpenSys informal. I'm currently trying to figure out how to get the syslog stuff from OPNsense into ElkStack. Oh my God, that would be so cool. Because then you could actually, if you figure that out, Mr. Crumbs, you're going to have to let me know. That sounds so cool. Yeah, well, this is just coffee talk, so you don't have to understand that. I do other things, by the way, on the stream. For example, on Friday night, I do stream art events, and sometimes I'll go skateboarding, and sometimes we'll just do random things like that. So if you are, I mostly do tech topics, but if you are into any of those other things, I do those at other times. So this is interesting. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I'm just getting started looking into OPNsense versus pfSense, because as I said in my story, I bought this device and then I put pfSense on there because that's what everyone told me to do. And then, a couple friends said, about OPNsense, right? And I was like, no. And then I looked up OPNsense and I was like, oh, I am totally going to do OPNsense. And then I watched a couple of videos on OPNsense on YouTube. I won't say who, because I don't know if they want to be called out like this. But one of them basically said that pfSense as a company did some really horrible things, and they've since begged for forgiveness and everything. But once I found out that pfSense had actually taken on the domains of their competitors and tried to make really really negative, like completely unsuitable for work jokes of them, that I was like, I don't want anything to do with that company at all, because I was like, that is so not cool. Not to mention the fact that they don't ever update their stuff. OPNsense updates their stuff all the time, and they're the latest version of BSD. It's being run by the BSD community. They're both the same, they come from the same project. And the more I kept learning about it, I was like, there's no way I can ever go back to pfSense after that. In fact, the only reason to use pfSense, to me, would be if you wanted to use there's my gateways. So if you wanted to use, if you really didn't care about all of the history that I just told you, and you wanted to make yourself ready to use pfSense in the enterprise. And there, pfSense does have an enterprise thing that it does, but to me, that's not compelling because, like, who cares, right? This is just the home firewall. Am I going to run pfSense at work, or if I'm a consultant, am I going to run, pfSense for a small company? Well, if that small company was so small that, it wasn't going to do anything else, maybe I would. But but probably not. I mean, I'm not the kind of guy uh, to frankly to work for that level, that small of an organization. And if I did, I don't know that that would be the pick. I mean, they would probably have an IT department and they probably have a proper firewall in there and probably something from Cisco or something. I mean, if you're a medium size, I mean, you'd have to be a really small company to use pfSense. And if you're a small enough company that's building their own hardware or using something like pfSense, you probably don't even want to pay the money for pfSense and to get their quote support. I would rather pay me or some other local consultant to keep OPNsense running. And so I think that OPNsense is a better pick so far. I mean, I'm just getting started with this, but I think it's probably a better pick even for small to medium sized businesses because it doesn't have those same. It's definitely more secure. There's just no question about it because they're more recent. If you go look at their update history, the OPNsense stuff gets updated far more frequently than OPNsense. And if there's one thing you never ever want to fall behind on, it's your firewall versioning. Yeah, I think it might actually be too fast. So, but still, I mean, the one thing it's like your web browser, right? I mean, if they find a massive vulnerability, well, the reason that I use Chrome instead of Firefox or Chromium is because Chrome gets the security updates first. Yeah, it has telemetry. Yeah, it's the evil part of Google. Yeah, all that stuff. But Chrome gets the updates. In fact, there's a really the reason I know this is because I read a blog that used to push again for Chromium, and they uh, you know told a story about how there's a security distro, I can't remember the one, that gave out um, that they were pushing Chromium, and they actually were 2 years behind in their update schedule for Chromium because the distro wasn't getting updated. Meanwhile, and so the argument goes like this: this was from a group, this was from a tech group that was actually suggesting you use Chromium for security and openness instead of Chrome, and they completely 180'd on it, and they said, you know, Chrome, you might not like Chrome, but there are so many eyes on Chrome that if Chrome does something wrong, and when we're talking people that are doing packet analysis and all kinds of stuff, and they're showing whether it phones home and when and all of that stuff, and so Chrome gets its first security updates. And I don't know how that's changed. Chromium is now, Chromium has always been the basis of Chrome, but Chrome gets the updates first, and then Chromium gets the updates. It's not the other way around. So that means that Edge, which is based on Chromium, is always going to be behind Chrome in security updates. So yeah, you can definitely build your own home custom firewalls as well. I actually did that years ago. That's when I caught a hacker. As I got somebody's old computer. I can't even remember who, and I put another like really big and ugly NIC in it card and a network card, and then I ran my own TCP dump and my own IP tables rules and everything, and I just had the two, and I basically built my own OPNsense out of just plain old Linux, and I also ran a mail server on that machine, and that's how I caught them. So, I mean, if you're up to the challenge, it's actually really really fun to do it. But keep in mind though that when you do that, make sure. I mean, it's good if you're single, but if you've got a whole family depending on your internet working, something like OPNsense makes a lot more sense to me because then, you've got something that's pretty solid that does most of the same things that you would do normally. Um, yeah, I mean, it's got God. Look at this: intrusion detection, log files, policy administration. I can't wait to go look at everything. I haven't even started, so I'm looking forward to that. Let's see. Renner House says, I'm tired of waiting so long for my Cisco Secure Firewall 3140 ETAs next year. Oh, you're talking about having them get it to you because of the backlog? Wow. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Security, I haven't seen more. I have not. No. I have a feeling too that the cost of the of the thing that I just bought for like 400, close to $400, I think that is high. Uh, Mostly because of all the other problems. Like for example, I've got two Jetson Nanos, actually three, and one that I use for IRL streaming, and two that I'm going to use for machine learning, and they cost a lot just because of the whole problem with supply chain stuff, they normally go for like 60 to $80, and I bought mine for like 300. Um, and they're, that's just the way it is, unfortunately. Um, I hope that's the case because I mean, if it's not, we're all in trouble. I hope those numbers come down. I mean, that's actually a topic I'd really love to talk about. What do you do when inflation puts everything out of your reach, and your job increases are not keeping up with that? We actually talked about that in a QCA recently. I mean, what do you do? What do you do? Do you go? You happy to have a job because everybody's getting fired in Silicon Valley, or do you go? I say, hey, if you're not increasing my pay by 8% per year, then I'm not keeping up with inflation. You're giving me you're indirectly, what do they call it? Cold firing me, or, so if you want to keep your value, you've got to change every 5 years. So let's think about what we want to do for the format. We had a few people ask questions earlier. So Chess Noob asked the question, do I need hardware for OPNsense? Yes, I would not do it without hardware. You can make a VM that does OPNsense, but I think that's a mistake. I know a lot of people who do that. Um, so, so that is the quick answer on that one. To let, yeah, you've got to let the people outbid each other to try to get a good salary. Absolutely. Um, let's see. Uh, yeah, I see here somebody was replying about the VM and saying you'll get drop packets when your hypervisor gets really busy. And I that's one of the main reasons that I think if you're going to actually do pfSense, you should, or OPNsense, you should definitely get hardware for that. And I personally don't think you should skimp on it. I really don't. I think that that's a really core piece of your environment. Um, and I personally wouldn't skimp on that because it'll affect everything. It'll affect streaming speeds. It'll affect, if it's not good. You don't have to have a super powerful computer to do networking, to do, pushing, unless you're doing encryption, which you can do, by the way. So you can actually encrypt all the traffic with OPNsense. You can use encrypted DNS and all kinds of stuff. And I don't know. I haven't looked into all that. I want to do that eventually, but one of the main reasons I did get it is because I was look, my Netgear Nighthawk router I went through and updated the firmware on it because I went through the list, all of the updates on the Netgear firewall, Wi-Fi router. I went to look through all of the. It said you have a firmware available. I mean, I hadn't updated the firmware in a long time, and I went to go look through the list, and there were probably 15, 16, maybe 10. I'm thinking of the list. There was probably about 10 or 12 things there. And at least half of them were security vulnerability in the changelog. And it didn't tell you what the security vulnerability was. It just said there were. And at that point, when I saw that, so I went ahead and I upgraded my firmware on my Netgear. And then I realized, I mean, because the Netgear, and then Netgear forced me, not even kidding, Netgear forced me to register an account with them, which really freaked me out. I got to tell you, they wouldn't even let me upgrade the firmware on my Netgear router until I authorized an account. And so now I'm like, I have no idea what Netgear is doing. I have no idea what they're doing. I'm like giving Netgear over. They know who I am. I have an account. They know who my email address is. And every single packet that goes through my house goes through this proprietary thing. And then I was like, that's really what turned the tide for me. Because before I was like, oh, it's too much of a hassle to run my own firewall, use an OPNsense or pfSense. And I was like, I don't know if I want to go through the hassle of it. And then I saw that. And so I went ahead and upgraded the firmware. And I started looking at OPNsense. I was like, okay, we need to do this. So I, bit the bullet and paid the money and set up pfSense first and then OPNsense after that. And did it during the wee hours of the morning and the night because I didn't want to, disrupt all my household here. And I'm really glad I did ever since then. So it also turns out that if you turn off all you have to do is turn off the DHCP server on. I turn off the DHCP server on my on my Netgear router, and then I just plugged it in just like any other switch, plugging into another switch, and all my Wi-Fi devices are automatically working. I don't even have to do anything with them. It's just at that point the Wi-Fi, my Netgear Wi-Fi router is just a router. It's no longer functioning as a. I mean, it does function as a firewall, but it's handing out DHCP addresses from OPNsense, so it doesn't have any business except for just being there to take in the Wi-Fi transmission and send the packets on. That's it. And I mean, I don't use that anyway because I use wired switches for everything that matters because Wi-Fi is horrendously insecure. So and if I wanted to, I can actually kind of mess with it so that it goes in a different way. Yeah. Let's see. VM worked fine for ages, but it's never going to be as good as metal. No. Best time to look for a good job is when you have a good job. Exactly. Power to decline. Yes, I agree. I completely agree with that. That's a fantastic statement. I was on Discord listening to you with a computer, and I only hear you on the right there and way lower overall. I don't know why that would be. Are you guys? How are you hearing me? Are you hearing me normally through? I wonder if my audio. Guys, am I sounding echoey? Or is this the actual mic audio that's coming in right now? Because I've been rebooting my machine all day. Let's see. If you're only hearing me on the right, I imagine you're probably hearing a different mic. On Twitch is always fine. On the Discord seems only one channel. Huh. Okay, well, I'll go fix that. I'll go fix that eventually. Sorry for that. No echoes and hi, Rob. Hey, Ascertainment, how are you? Discord is okay for you? You can hear both channels on Discord? Not like in one ear or something? I'm hoping they're the same audio device, but yeah, it's good to check. Yes, we are recording. Just in case you're wondering, I need to turn my recording sign back on. And we're going to be here for, another 15 minutes or so. We're just talking about random things. We've been talking about OPNsense and pfSense and just things. I don't see anything really compelling to talk about in the news recently. We're just drinking coffee. Just really no agenda TV. Just here talking. I am not, a morning show host, so I'm not nearly as entertaining. but we can definitely talk about stuff. What's going on in y'all's lives? People have been changing jobs a lot. We had some people mentioning that. Let me see if I missed any other questions here. Can I use pfSense to block adult sites on Windows? Yes. OPNsense and pfSense have a service that will blacklist certain DNS entries, and I don't know about that. The Queen is dead. Ding dong, the Queen is dead. That's so horrible. I don't mean any disrespect. I'll tell you what, though, this is going to be political. I mean, I can't help getting political. People avoid politics on their streaming content. I don't. So, in terms of the whole Queen thing, I would be one of the very, very peaceful, conscientious objectors to the monarchy. I would definitely be. Do you realize that they still give money to England in Canada? I haven't tried Death Wish coffee. That sounds really good. Stuff is good. Death Wish coffee? Death Wish, really. I mean, it might be a little bit too much for my heart to take. I don't know what to see. What happens to the Ukrainian conflict when Russian winter comes? That's where we get to see if Russians can really pull through on their whole thing. In terms of the Queen thing, I think it's absolutely ridiculously silly that the monarchy still gets a fucking dime. Sorry, that's my one swear word I'm going to be allowed. America has kind of like, we have an oligarchy that's getting money as if they were a monarchy. and they're just doing it in the shadows. So that's probably worse. I mean, at least the monarchy tells you, hey, I'm your king, give me money. In America, it's like, hey, we're your kings. We have the money. We have the most lobbyists. Give us the money. And they don't pay any taxes. And, you know, we basically have worse than a monarchy because we have a monarchy, but it's in the shadows. It's totally dark. Dark money. It's especially dark now that Citizens United made it so they don't even have to account for the money in politics anymore. You know, but you know, if it doesn't make any sense, there's a few things in humanity, of course, that we have to move on from, and I think that's one of them. I think this idea has got to go. Does it mean I think we should be communist or Leninist or Stalinist? No. Should we have a little bit more socialist tendencies? Probably. I don't think you should have to pay for education. I think, first of all, the education system is completely boring. I don't want to talk about it. Do you want to give me all your money? Just let us squeeze you dry. Fully consensual. I love you too, dude. I missed you talking about this as I asked in the Discord, but a colleague linked me a course for a SecOps cert. I'm not much digging due to myself due to time constraints, but wanted to get your opinion. Oh, it's the ICS2. Okay, so let me talk about this. I have to describe it because I've promised myself this is going to be podcast friendly. So we're looking at the site ics2.org. I don't even know what it stands for. What does ICS2 even stand for? It's blinding me. So, oh my God, why? Find the best certification for you. So I actually talked about this the other day in QCA, but I'll talk about it again. So as you can see by all of the stock corporate photos, nobody looks like this anymore, by the way. This really drives me crazy. This is a little side note, but if you look at the pictures, the stock photos of people doing business with like jackets on and well coiffed hair and women in business suits and, you know, nice clean environments like that, nobody does work like that. This is how work gets done. My room. My messy room with like cut up patch cables on the floor and, you know, the open bathroom in the back and my underwear on the ground. That's how work gets done. Or time surrender. Oh, did they? Oh, wow. That's interesting. That's a very controversial topic. We'll have to talk about that. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that every time a company pulls out this kind of stuff, I really, jeans and tie-dye and Crocs nice. Yeah, you should. Exactly. It's what I'm trying to tell you. I mean, even if you're an executive, executives. Okay, so executives in the finance industry in Charlotte, they still put up their suits and everything because, you know, it's finance industry. Hey, Omni, how you doing? But, you know, but the rest, no. People are so casual, and if nothing else, COVID made us even more casual. Everybody's got their COVID beard, you know, but they kept it. So I don't know. It just this. I mean, here's a guy. Okay, he's working by himself in the corner, and I could go work. So ICS caters to this old idea, flip-flops to work, right? You know, ICS caters to this old idea of corporate, specifically America, and, you know, training you up in the classroom. Look, they have a person standing in front of a board, you know. God, I mean, even the icons are just so cringe. The icons are like, here, I am the teacher. I am pointing to something on the board, and you are my subjects. Listen and learn. Nobody learns that way, by the way. Nobody learns that way. Learning happens in the lab, not the lecture hall. It's one of my popular sayings. Learning happens in the lab, not the lecture hall. It happens when you get your hands dirty. It happens when you experiment. It happens when you blow shit up in your face. That's how the learning happens, if you live through it. House coded bunny sippers for life. Exactly. Voice active PowerPoint. Exactly. So we were kind of poking fun at ICS here because and there's a point, I promise. The point is that when somebody tells you go get an ICS certificate, you kind of have to know where they're coming from, right? And then you have to kind of take that in stride and go, well, that's not my thing. I want to work for a company, a different type of company. I want to work for the federal government, and I want to wear my suit every day. I mean, I think even the government is like finally got softened up on some of that stuff. But if, the more conservative companies out there are the kind that, like these kind of certificates. Het Tennis reminded me yesterday. By the way, Het is a great streamer, and I am plugging him every time I can. He actually has more than a dozen certifications, including ICS, CISSP, and a bunch of others. So make sure, somebody who really knows how to navigate the conservative enterprise certificate landscape would be able to help. And he talked about Security Plus being mandatory for the American government jobs and security. It's being Google controlled, Spud. Yeah, me too. I've gone back and forth, and at some point, I'm like, let's bow down to our, I basically did an Elliot. So in season 2 or 3, I think season 3, in season 3 of Mr. Robot, which is hands down one of my top 5 favorite things ever made. It's got problems, I know, but I love everything about it. Spoiler alert: Mr. Robot is actually not about hacking, primarily. Don't give it away. There's lots of spoilers there. Yeah, the thing with Mr. Robot is you have to go all the way through it. A lot of people hate it. I actually made a Twitter list that's people who hated Mr. Robot. Just for fun, because there was this guy bagging on Mr. Robot for no reason, and all these haters were jumped in on it, and I was like, it's not even about hacking. Like, I don't. Anyway, so the show is an absolute masterpiece. If the reason it's a masterpiece, it's like, okay, so I was Mormon, right? So it's like Christ talking to the Pharisees and the Sadducees, right? He would give a parable, and it would go right over their heads. If you believe the biblical account, Christ would give an account. He would speak in parables, and it would go right to the hearts of the people who were prepared to hear it, who knew what was going on, who got the subtleties of the inferences and everything. And the Sadducees and Pharisees didn't get it. Like, what? They didn't get it at all. So if you believe in that whole Christian message thing, that's exactly what Mr. Robot is. Mr. Robot is speaking right past all of the people that are going to see this. There are so many Easter eggs and references to amazing works of art and literature, and homages to some of the best movies on celluloid ever made. That it's just chock full, especially season 2, which everybody hates, with good stuff. So give it a shot and see if you can. The way that they changed camera shots, the way that the season 5 or 4 or 5, when they actually started. They did a play format where they filmed everything in one take, and they had everybody leave the set so they could do it in a. It's just absolute art at the finest level, and so I'm a huge fan of Mr. Robot. So, why was I talking about it? Way different than season 4, absolutely, because they this is the genius of Sam, right? So Sam and the writers, they pull you in with the hacking thing. They get a lot of really good, people to watch it, like I sometimes do when I'm doing hacking, and then you don't even realize it. After Breaking Bad, yeah, I love Breaking Bad too. Don't get me wrong, and they pull you into the story, and by the end of season 4, you realize, wow, and you go on this huge journey that they had in order to get you into the thing to watch it. They had to make it really flashy and hackery and all of that, but that's actually not what it's about. And so the problem is as soon as people start realizing over time that the show's not about all these like wicked, hacks and all this stuff, and I'm not going to give it away, but they start to fall off and they start to not like it. But the ones who make it all the way to the end are like, oh my God, this entire thing is a fucking work of art. So anyway, that is not what the ICS is. So the question is, so let's just put it this way. Elliot didn't get certified, but there was a scene, and the reason I got all into that whole thing I'm now remembering is because in season 3, Uh, representation, yes. In season 3, Elliot makes a decision that he can do more. He can do more help by um, working from within. So it's not a spoiler to tell you this, but one of the big themes and aha moments for all of the protagonists in Mr. Robot is they realize that they can actually do more by not destroying things, but by building things and then selectively destroying bad things, kind of like a white blood cell in the body. You may not want to be a part of the body, and there might be a lot of things wrong with the body, but they can do more from within, and he does. I won't, it's not giving anything away. He goes to work for a company, I won't say where, and he ends up taking out these really really horrible people from the inside. Uh, oh no, it's not IT crowd at all. No, you're talking about Linux, or you're talking about no. So the bottom line is, if you want to work for the enterprise, you're going to have the evil core people definitely do. Yes, they definitely dress like the stock images. In fact, they make fun of it the whole time. I mean, the ICS. Okay, so I guess that's probably what I thought. I mean, this whole scene right here. You could take the ICS website and directly transpose it with Evil Corp advertising. I mean, look at this. Look at this. Oh, Tyrell. Yeah, Tyrell is a tough character, isn't he? I mean, I do too. I really like Tyrell, and I even love Gianna, and she's because she's just so wonderfully evil for all these demented reasons. But I mean, look at it. It's literally like change the world with Evil Corp. It's like, but so would you get a certificate from them? That's what I want to ask you. Let me ask you, would you get a certificate from them? And if you would, why? What do you think? What do you think, my friends? Why would you get a certificate from Evil Corp? I'm sorry, ICS too. Why would you choose to get a certificate? And I guess I'm kind of giving away my answer here. From them equals employment. Yeah. So, but employment where? Right. So, my default recommendation these days, after doing a lot of research on this, I have, this is going to be hard for internationals to do, but Western Governors University is an online college that has a cybersecurity degree that includes like 80 something certificates. Once again, I have nothing to do with them other than I was asked to vet it by a mother who found this for her son who wanted to get into cybersecurity, and was not, he was atypical. He was not the kind of kid who would do well in a standard college environment. And so I actually mentored him through WGU's cybersecurity program for the first part of it. And as I was in there, I was extremely skeptical. I was like, oh my God, it's an online cybersecurity degree. This has got to be so bad. And, it's run by a bunch of Mormons for the most part. It's centered in Salt Lake City. But it's good. It's good. And they have different programs here. You can get certificates. I'm actually not ruling out an IT degree. They do degrees in all kinds of things. They don't charge you anything unless they charge you by the time. So the more you can cram into a semester, the more the cheaper your cost is. And there's actually a YouTube video of a guy who was a mechanic who got a computer science degree through them, and he documents the whole thing if you want to follow it. And they don't let everybody in, but so cybersecurity and information assurance. It's interesting that they changed the title. I think they changed the title because information assurance is kind of the lightweight version of cybersecurity. It's not pen testing, right? And I thought of WGU because they give you a bunch of certifications along with it. So third-party certifications, read more about certificates. So as a part of the degree cost, you get, the entire thing is made in, it's almost like they they did it in conjunction with the American government and military and the finance industry and all the conservative organizations that really care about cybersecurity. Um, and would I want to work for one of these? Probably not. But so if you get I mean, here's all the certificates right here. I'll just read them off since we're on. So the BS in cybersecurity and information assurance includes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 certificates that they pay for, and you can take 2 of them at the same time. So if you get twice, and if you fail, nobody knows what happens. So you get certified cloud professional, CompTIA Plus, which they have a lot of CompTIA stuff, and so seeing how in bed they are with CompTIA really worries me. If you know anything about CompTIA, they're kind of the devil. They're the king company of useless certifications, multiple choice, multiple guess tests, and they've lobbied to put people in jail for repairing their phones without, professionally, without the whole right to repair thing. And they're right set dead center in the middle of that. In fact, so I am not a fan of CompTIA. It does not matter. The CompTIA A Plus is a good cert to enter the industry with. The Security Plus is required by the American government. Het 10 has confirmed that again yesterday. And they have a comp test, pen test plus, which is, I can't overstate my disgust with the CompTIA crap. But it doesn't matter if you're going to play in a world where their front page looks like something out of Evil Corp and Mr. Robot. You've got to play that game. And so you play that game, you get the degree, and you get your piece of paper, you pay the least amount of money possible, and you supplement it with actual skills by running your own lab, doing your own stuff. The study material is solid. Getting for the information will teach you a lot. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that's true more for some of this stuff here, but I don't know. I'm just not a fan. I did a whole thing on certifications. Why certify? It's an hour-long video on YouTube, and the ultimate message is, depending on what you're going for, having certificates can be either a help or a hindrance. Most of the time they're a help if you're on the operations and security side. If you're in the development side, obviously it doesn't make any sense to get a certificate. It's more important that you create code that proves how to, because employment is about trust and presenting something that creates trust between you and your potential employer, and every employer is different. If the employer is the U.S. government, and Cybersecurity Task Force Division or NSA or something like that, then yeah, they're gonna their measurements of trust are gonna be these things. If you're if you want to go work for one of the more edgy organizations of security out there, then these things would have no merit whatsoever. In fact, they would make fun of it. There's actually one, I won't say who. There's actually one security consultancy that makes fun of people who get certificates. On their recruitment page, it's like, we don't care about your certificates, but maybe the OSCP if you get that. But they're downright pejorative with regard to certificates. They make fun of people who get them. So, it just depends on where you want to go in the industry. The more conservative, more formal the industry, and the harder it is to prove yourself, the more you're going to need a degree, and you're going to need, the certificates to go with it. So, and all of that said, I am intrigued by the ISC certificates. There's one in particular, 1 million certified in cybersecurity. I am intrigued by the fact that they make these nice little, boxes and everything. It doesn't really mean anything. So, code with good test cases and error catching. Yes, for sure. So I'm actually really intrigued by the CSSLP, which is the highest paid certificate of all the certificates, even more than the CISSP, because it is specifically designed for software security. So there's the implied assumption that you know how to write code. So you write code and you write code and you're able to get and you can get training. I mean, most of these certification organizations are just trying to get money from you through the training mostly. You'll be a lawyer in software security. Yes. You think so? Yeah. CSSLP, you'd be a lawyer in software security. I mean, most of the ISCs, Ghost of the Cat would know. Ghost of the Cat has doxed before that they are in the security industry, as far as we know. I can never verify that, but so the security industry is so huge that there's a lot out there, and you want to talk to somebody in the industry. Like I really trust John Hammond. Among all the security streamers and video producers, John Hammond's probably my favorite. And I trust Het. And there's a number of other people. Yeah, and there's a number of people in our community who have spoken rather in a rather detailed fashion, implying that they work where in the Hawaii facility and stuff like that. So I'm pretty sure we have people in our community who are deeply embedded in the cybersecurity industry, both in America and abroad. And so we do have a good community if you want to ask these kind of questions. We have a lot of people in this community that have come from military, but not all. We have kind of a weird mix. So we get people that are non-joiners, and then we get people that are retired military. We get people that are like active military cybersecurity professionals, and so it's a fun mix. Software security is the pit you don't want to be in, really. It's becoming the scapegoat position. Anytime something goes wrong on the network, they point the finger at the AppSec guy. Really? So you're saying that the CSSLP is an AppSec position and you become the scapegoat? Yeah. This is super interesting. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, though, Beef Supreme. I love using your names. I have to use your names because the podcast people won't know. So we're kind of over here. We'll go for another 5 minutes or so. But I really want to talk about this. Yeah. So, yes. It depends on the organization. Not everybody's going to blame that person. But, recently, let's talk about jobs in the security industry for a second. So, yeah, if you work for a Fortune 10 company, or you work, there are different dynamics, of course, and there's different levels of the blame game and politics and stuff like that. And the more corporate, the more evil corp the organization, the more they're going to look for scapegoats, the more they're going to do those kind of things. And to be quite frank, the reason that I stopped pursuing a formal career in information and cybersecurity when I started, which is actually one of the reasons I started streaming back in the day. I started streaming my OSCP progress, which I later abandoned and then went into cloud native and software, operations, security, software development, as opposed to, the actual cybersecurity field. I mean, first of all, security isn't everything, right? If you're not thinking about security while you write, and during our Go development during the boost last Sunday or Saturday, we talked about that. It's like, don't do this. Make sure you check this. Line returns that we're not properly trimming the lines and things like that. Security should be at every level of the process. You should be thinking about it, particularly in software development. And software developers don't think like hackers, unfortunately. And I was hoping that the software security, the AppSec stuff, would be a way to encourage secure development practices, because God knows that is not happening now. I mean, the Uber hack is a perfect example of this. We have a developer out there somewhere being paid gobs and gobs of money who actually thought it was a good idea to put corporate secret certificates in a text file and without any encryption on the system. And you don't have to be a hacker to know how stupid that is. I mean, that is so ridiculously stupid and uninformed. If you hadn't studied what caused the Uber hack, go look around. It was it was a multi-layer issue, but the most important issue of that thing was that the secrets were not saved in a protected state. And they could have been. There's many ways that it could have been, but there's more to it, of course. The whole social engineering part of it. I mean, but the point I'm trying to make is that the person who wrote that application, I have at my job, I have found secrets committed to GitHub repos publicly. So, I could keep going on, but I don't want to talk about that. So, these kind of mistakes are made by novice developers who don't understand security at all. And so obviously it goes without saying that security is a part of the whole entire thing. Pre-commit hooks are not used. Yes. Well, and pre-commit hooks are a complicated thing. In case anybody doesn't know what a pre-commit hook, Git, which is the tool used for saving source code, has something where you can do where it automatically runs checks on software to look for certain things, and you can do whatever as a part of the commit process. But everybody's got to use those same hooks, and those hooks have to be set up in the development environment. And unless you can create a development container for consistency, some of your team might use them, some of them might not, and so it becomes problematic. These kind of things, though, these kind of questions, not evaluating your development practices for security and stuff. I don't know about Husky. I'll have to go look at that. It's a good one. It's a good pre-commit tool. Not just a raw text file on NFS, which I think is what it was. Yeah. In fact, yeah, there's a major project that I worked for on IBM where they had no source management at all. It was just a bunch of tarballs. That was their source management. They had never even heard of it before because they're operations people writing code. And this is actually one of the areas that I'm really passionate about when it comes professionally, is because I've seen over and over again, people who are not trained in software engineering at all are writing all kinds of code because they're SREs and they're expected to, write operations code or set up clouds or automations and things like that. And they barely can code Python. Most of them have no idea how to shell script. And when they do, it's a disaster. They don't even know shell check exists. They wouldn't know what shell shock is either. But, and they just have no clue. They really have no clue. And as no amount of security will help them. Yeah. And so if the engineering organization maturity is low, then yeah, security is not going to help. You need to train the people. And there's actually a part of me that really wants to do that. There's a part of me that wants to become, and if there's anybody out there who wants to do this, the world definitely needs this. The problem is nobody wants to pay for it. Right? If HR just dismiss their entire security team, we've heard from somebody in our chat today that, a top Fortune 10 company loves to point the blame at the CSSLP AppSec security people when stuff goes wrong, because their job, it sounds like, is more of an enterprisey type of job where you're supposed to go around and make PowerPoint presentations to get all your developers to do the right thing. They probably don't give them any audit power whatsoever. The truth to say, so in a perfect world, do I reject for just because of gray beard? I don't know. Do I? I don't know if I do. The world has been changing for a while. Companies are getting more aware of the importance of security. I agree. And because mostly, I think, the hacks, I think, yeah. I think that we just have to plan on there's going to be, people are going to get hacked. I mean, the whole security field is just a huge mess right now, but at least it's getting attention. I mean, there was a time when people throw people in jail or convicted them of felons. Randall Schwartz comes to mind because they just tried to try to go outside of the box and do some secure things to help companies become more secure. And some of those companies, including Intel, sued them and say, you have any rights to help us with our security. So yeah, to tell board members of the public, yeah. And QA is the thing. QA and security never get the attention they need in the enterprise because they don't make money. They don't. And this is one of the reasons that I think that I think that we are in it. So the reason I was going through the bug bounty thing is we don't live in the same era. We live in a time when security at least is getting, exclusive. Yeah. So let me restate. So I think we live in a time when security is being forced to be on people's minds. And we have actually accepted hackers and security as a member, as part of the good guys. And even the people who hack crap. And, it used to be, why would you need to learn? I mean, the thing is so funny is that a lot of the ethical arguments against hackers early on don't hold any water because they were completely based on logical fallacies. I mean, you could say, why do you need to learn to shoot an AR-15? There's no reason to learn to shoot an AR-15 unless you're implicitly going to go murder a bunch of children in a school. And that's the kind of logic people used to use with hackers. They used to use that logic with hackers. They're like, why do you need to know how to break into a computer? Like, obviously, you're going to go break into a computer. It means they immediately implied nefarious intent to learning how to do these things. And what would the answers be? The answers are the same. If you ask an NRA, card carrying, rifle aficionado who has to get a permit to bring his $30,000 worth of guns into the state of North Carolina, I knew a guy like that actually. He was a gentle soul, an amazing human being, and he just really, really loved guns. And we would go like blow the crap out of like watermelons and all kinds of stuff. Was he ever going to go ballistic? No, he actually went around all over in the area and helped scouts do programs to put, to create gun locks. And I mean, I don't agree with his position on many things, but he was a good person, and he was actively working to make the world better by helping people understand what guns were about and to secure their guns and make sure that he paid out of his own pocket a lot of money to help people get gun safes and gun locks. And he would go out and say, okay, you need to lock these down and stuff. And I still don't think that that's the answer. Still, the point is that you don't immediately imply that this guy's going to go murder a bunch of children because he knows how to shoot a machine gun. Right. And so the answers to this guy would make are the same answers that a hacker would make. So you go to him and you say, well, why do you have guns? Why are you shooting them for? He's go, I just really, really love shooting guns. It's really fun. I like the precision of it. I like the feel of it. I like the expertise involved. I like the smell of gunpowder. Okay, ask the same question of a total black hat, pen tester. It's like, well, I really just love the glow of neon. I like the culture. I like the skills that it takes. I like the challenge. I like that sweet, sweet feeling of got root. I like all of those things. Does that mean that the hacker's going to go out and do really negative things? No. I love the ski mask. I love the neon green turtles. I love, the mandatory, hoodie and music and stuff. I mean, it's crazy because that is true. I mean, there's a lot of people that get into hacking because of the culture more than the skills required. And then they realize it's hard and they're like, oh shit. I was like, no. I just want to wear cyberpunk glasses and, and I don't really want to do anything. I don't want to learn, how to SQL. God, I hate SQL. PowerShell. What the hell is that? So, and so the point is we're in a time where it's more acceptable to be a hacker. And I think, or to work in security. I mean, Unix, yes, that kind of thing. I mean, this is where you would find some Unix, but I do want to say that the reason that I have not pursued any of these certificates is mostly because the greatest joy I get in hacking is recreational hacking. So I can go out and shoot watermelons. Sometimes a watermelon in somebody else's yard. Or maybe I shoot a squirrel on accident, in somebody else's yard that's eating my lettuce, right? And I can still enjoy it without doing it all day, every day, and doing it. So, but I have no desire to participate in the corporate politics game of any kind. I'm an engineer. I don't care for that stuff. There are people that thrive off of it and are very good at it, and I think that's a skill set that I really respect. I just don't have it. I don't want to do it. So I was hoping the CSSLP was going to be more of a boots on the ground, kind of like, let's help people write secure software kind of thing. But I could see really quickly how if you're in charge of secure software and people produce software that's insecure, then you're the one who gets chopped. I could see that happening very easily. Yeah, rather go sit on the beach. Information and learning is never ending. Oh, I know. Yeah, well, look, it's not just cybersecurity is akin, if not worse, than web development. If people think they want to go to web development because whatever, the pace of change in the web development field is so, they call it framework fatigue, because it's so. Look, if you want to get into IT, you are writing off a couple hours of your day every day just to keep up. That is a part of the culture of IT. Leon says this, and I totally agree. Learn with Leon has said this many times. He coined the term IT culture, and I love it. When you get it, or tech culture, when you get a tech job, you're automatically signing up for this crap. And if you don't like it, if you don't like having to stay current and having your own lab and spending your own money on stuff to stay up to date so you can keep a job, if you don't like the pace of it, then it's probably not for you. There are areas of tech that move more slowly than others. But that's the job. And so, yeah, we'll teach you that what should be done, not how to do it. Yeah, and that's why I don't like it. So this is why I mean, the common one is the CISSP, and this is we've had people who are chief security officers chime in on this, and yeah, it's like the price of Java Spring. Oh yeah, so I mean, look, I ran a company for 10 years and came back to the world and had not done anything with containers or Kubernetes or Docker. All of that came out in the time that I was away doing the other stuff and teaching, Linux fundamentals and Python programming and Go programming. I'm really glad that I got into Go at 2014, because that, I mean, has exploded since then. So, but my point is that it's impossible to keep up with it all. And cybersecurity, unfortunately, you have to keep up with everything because there's security flaws and everything. And then if you're doing the management of that, you've got to make sure that your team keeps up, but then they don't give you enough money for you to keep up. And going to any amount of conferences, you got to really trust your team to be really, really good at constantly pushing themselves and stuff. And it's even somebody who's really motivated, who spends every waking hour keeping up with the cybersecurity stuff, is still going to fall behind. There's just not enough time. I mean, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, yeah, security research is boring. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say, Ghost of a Cat. I completely agree with you. So Ghost of a Cat says, security, who's in the industry, says security research is so boring you'll be depressed in no time, but you'll have if you don't have the right mindset. Yeah. Instead of saying current, one can fake it and make it. Yeah, you can fake it and make it until you can't. I mean, I don't want people to not get into the IT field because they have imposter syndrome and they can never make it. I was hired as a Kubernetes administrator without a single bit of Kubernetes experience at all, because they knew from my history that I would learn it. In fact, they told me in the interview, they're like, I told them point blank, I said, look, I've messed around with Kubernetes a little bit. I intend to make my own, cluster with it eventually and learn to manage it. But I at this moment, I have no knowledge of it. I have done all of these other things, and I had my Go programming, I had the company that I ran, I had, lots and lots of stuff in my GitHub repo. I had my experience at Nike and blah, blah, blah. And for IBM for all those years. And so my resume or my CV told the story. It was like, this guy has a history of learning what's necessary and when necessary, just-in-time learning, I call it. And I got a job for Kubernetes without a single bit of Kubernetes experience. And to this day, it's been 2 years later, and I'm still playing catch up with Kubernetes because it's just moving so fast. Also, I'm being, roped in to do other things like write, RESTful APIs and Open API that talk to our PBS batch processing. And, so the job is wide and varied. You're going to do lots of different things, and you're not going to be able to keep up on everything. And that's just accepted. It's accepted that you're not going to be the best at everything all the time, that you're going to be focused on different things. And the most important skill, of course, is to really do research quickly and effectively. And speaking of which, do we still have a server? Oh, good. Okay. And to, yes, I would imagine that's really true in the case of cybersecurity. Free time, really learning what you need to. And the hardest part about learning is knowing what to learn for a given task. And if you're in operations, uh, you have so many things. Like, have you seen the list of things in the home lab that I have to learn? Let me just show you. So this is all the stuff in my home lab that I want to put in here. If you go to rdbxrob/home lab, you can see all the stuff that my wife is making. She just woke up. I made her coffee. I hope she didn't spill her coffee. Anyway, but look at this infrastructure stack. This is all stuff that I need to be, reasonably good at, like, in order to do this job. This is not counting in software development I'm doing. The Ubuntu server, Cedero Talos, Core DNS, Ansible, Isinga 2, etcd, Kubernetes, Creo, Container Engine, Calico, which is a CNI implementation for Kubernetes, MetalLB, load sort of hardware-based load balancer, node feature discovery, NVIDIA GPU feature discovery, NFS storage, Samba storage classes, FFS storage, Keycloak, OpenLDAP, Kerberos. I mean, just that by itself, by the way, is so huge. OPA gatekeeper policies, Harbor registry, and Trivy for scanning registries, Istio, container mesh, Tecton, Argo CD. Oh, by the way, I need to learn some other stuff. Other stuff I just found out I have to learn. So, Airflow, Vertex AI, Seldon. I mean, these are all technologies that just go and they're just in the cloud native space, right? I definitely need to learn GCP inside and out. Because we are kind of a multi-cloud. JT and I remember learn the fundamentals. The rest is just sailing in an endless sea of information. I agree. Yes. When it comes to fundamentals for me, I have tried to put the fundamentals into the beginner boost. So the fundamentals, I mean, I think you need to be wicked good with a terminal anywhere. Linux and Unix and BSD, and this OPNsense is proving this. pfSense OPNsense is BSD, so it doesn't have the IP command. It has ifconfig and things like that. It's really brought home. I'm super happy to have added OPNsense because now I have a BSD system in my stack. And if you don't give in to the fact that you're going to have to support multiple forms of Unix, including Linux, that you're not going to be able to do all those things. So Seldon, Prometheus, Thanos, Grafana, GitHub Enterprise, which I'm actually going to buy, so I can simplify that. Don't. we have some drinkers in this stream. Thank you for being here. I'm drinking coffee, but we can pretend this is, got a little vodka in it, which would probably happen tonight. So yeah, this is a full-time job just to stay up on this, and to become, senior in this is going to take quite a bit of investment. I mean, I was just counting out the money. The original cost of all the stuff in my rack was well over $25,000. And you got to remember that most of that stuff I bought way back when, and it's just leftovers from when I had a business. So, do you have to have a $25,000, computer rack to work in tech? No, but if you want to be good at it and maintain position in it, you're going to need to dedicate a certain amount of your personal income to staying good. And I don't like that that's true. I think it's more important that you invest that money in creating a really good lab for yourself, and something you can experiment in and blow stuff up with and all that, than it is to pay pretty much any dime for a certification in operations and security. Personally, I would much rather spend that money on stuff that's going to enable me to experiment and to learn the concepts. And then all I have to do is learn about what's required by reading the list of things that are needed, and then create for myself, lesson plans and labs and things like that, and projects that show that I know that stuff that I can talk about in an interview. And there are some cases where you absolutely have to have a certificate. Like if you want to work for the government, you have to have, CompTIA, Cert, Sec A plus or Sec plus, whatever. But But I think that it's much more compelling to produce trust with the potential employer, to show them that what you're doing and your commitment to these things. If you're one of these people that just wants a job and you just want to make money and don't really care about spending your own money on your own home lab and stuff, that's fine. It's just gonna be much harder to find a job because people hire people who have passion for the job. They want to see your proof of that. They want to see what have you done, and that's shown that not only do you want this job, but you're passionate about this thing that you're going to work with. I think it is absolutely. I've had hiring professionals in this chat more than once, and when we were going through Kubernetes, for example, CKAD, CK, and all that versus, and I've had in fact, what was the name? I'm trying to remember the name, but I had a hiring professional at the executive level in here, and they said I would hire somebody running their own Kubernetes lab in their closet over any certification of any kind. And that didn't, because it shows that you know how to set it up. It shows that you went through all the on-prem stuff, which includes something like setting up the CNI and things that you don't get to do if you're going to do GCP or GCK or whatever. And so, these are, you understand those sorts of things. The fact that I have pfSense now means that, like, if I were ever asked, I could say, oh yeah, I have OPNsense versus pfSense. I mean, I think that all of these things individually, I know it was a $400. I paid $400 for my OPNsense, firewall router, but I can now do all kinds of packet inspection. I can monitor traffic and all of this stuff. Is that worth more than a $300 course that's going to maybe help me pass, the CCNA certificate? I think it is. I think spending the money on that device is far more educational and has far more value than spending it on some stupid course that's going to end up with me maybe getting a piece of paper and answering a bunch of multiple choice questions. I have had LTN Bob, actually, who is not here right now, but one of my favorite streamers, who's also a network guy, who sort of ran the networking department at a community college. And he had told me the story where he's interviewed people coming in to get the job as, network administrators and instructors. And he put them in front of a Cisco lab, which is a bunch of hardware that they have in a rack. And he said, okay, now go configure, a couple sublans for us. With no pressure, just, gave him the day to do it. And they had no idea. They had no idea how to deal with the hardware because the only thing they'd ever done was simulation. They hadn't had the money to use this, which, by the way, that's one of the reasons to not rule out community colleges specifically for network engineering. Community colleges may not have the reputation of some of the other things out there, but a good community college will have a kick-ass computer lab. And that's the case in Mooresville, actually. The Mooresville, very, poorly attended program for network engineering is really great. I mean, they have top-notch engineers. They have top-notch engineering equipment in there. And so a lot of the things you pay for in college is access to the equipment. So you go in there, you pay your money for community college, and then, who cares if the instructors are really great? You've got this opportunity to work directly with Cisco hardware to set that stuff up. You would never have access to that stuff before. And that's, in my opinion, that's one of four main reasons to go to college at all, is to get access to resources. So you can get access to the resources. Now, it just so happens at this time in my career and the circumstances of me having owned a business make it so that I can actually run my own hardware cluster. But that's not going to be feasible for most people. But I started out my Linux journey by taking old abandoned hardware and building my own routers out of it and building my own Linux systems out of it. Off of anything, my garage was filled with crap. It smelled like cat piss because I kid you not, at least one of the systems used to be the home of a cat. They used to curl up in the middle of it, and because it was warm or so, it was the weirdest thing. So, and I had all of these old computers, and my job was to fix them. And if something went bad on a board, I'd go pull a board off something else. Old hardware and Linux go really well together. And so you can build your own lab. You don't have to have a really polished, pristine rack that you spend a lot of money on. In fact, I'm getting rid of my IKEA rack over here, which is the one I was running while I was a teacher, and didn't have the money for a big fancy, rack. So hopefully that spends a little bit of perspective on where to go with this. There are exceptions if you want to learn about GSM. Don't run your own BTS; you'll be arrested. Yeah, well, I mean, there are there are things. Yeah, are you talking about Wi-Fi stuff? Yeah, yeah. Like I don't know. I'm guessing. Like you can't run your own. If you run your own, if you're running your own pineapple, you could get in big troubles. Yeah, yeah. I figured. Yeah, people do all the time, but yeah, you can get arrested for that. One of the things on a Raspberry Pi that we did is we took over a local FM channel within like a half a block radius. It's really fun, but kind of thing that could get you in trouble too. Um, yeah, with roach infestation because the insides were the perfect temp for living for a roach. Really? I did not know that. Anything around 900 megahertz is a big no-no. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's things, and there are people that track that stuff down. So, um, but there's also places you can learn those things. So, um, so that's a consideration is like where you're going to go. The bottom line, I would rather spend money on improving my lab and giving myself opportunities to talk very excitedly about the things that I've done in my lab and the choices I made and why I made them and the debates I had with my friends about pfSense versus OPNsense and why and those things. I mean, these are the kind of things that are going to demonstrate passion and aptitude, and they're going to get you the job. If you say, well, I took this certificate, the only reason to get a certificate or a degree, frankly, is to get past HR. Because I guarantee you, no interview are they going to, I mean, other than to validate that you got the certificate, they're not going to sit there and when the SME goes to interview you, the subject matter expert, they're not going to sit there and ask you, hey, tell us about your exciting certificate that you got. Right? Nobody wants to talk about that. They just want to know that you went through it. It's a painful thing you did. You got it. You went through HR. For the sake of conversation and to generate trust with the actual team you're going to be working with once you got past HR, they're going to want to hear about you. They're going to want to see what you can do. They're going to stick you in front of a Cisco server rack and say, okay, make me a VLAN. They're gonna want to leak code test you or whatever. They're gonna want to talk to you about your personal projects and what you've done and what you've done professionally. There's something interesting about the IT world is that there's sort of an expectation that you're going to do all this stuff on your free time versus like in medicine where if you're expected to perform surgery in your free time to show passion, people will laugh at you. Right? So you can talk about stuff that you've done for other companies with passion and say, hey, this is what we did. Yeah, they want to work with a human, not somebody who just knocks out certs. And don't underestimate, and I talked about this last night, don't underestimate the value of a liberal arts education. Because liberal arts creates well-rounded individuals, and we've been saying this since the 80s. I still maintain that this is true. People who have liberal arts education are good at reading and writing, and they're well-read. They have something to think about the world. I think if there's one huge problem with our society and all of humanity right now, it's that our technology is outpacing our humanity, and this is going to kill us unless we can do that. And that's exactly what the humanities are for, is for us to increase our humanity, our skills as humans, our knowledge of the world and how things should be, and, our relationship to the world and one another. These are not soft skills. They're what it means to be human. So I personally think if you're going to get a degree, because you have to have the piece of paper, I would personally get a liberal arts degree, and that has you do a lot of reading. And then I would spend any extra money, unless you want to go into something that requires certification, like government cybersecurity. Then I would spend the other stuff like learning tech on my own, because I really really feel like being able to communicate, being able to understand your place in the universe, and all those things. I think that those things will shine through when it comes to getting a job, but not just that, but making sense of why you want the job and what kind of job you want, and those things. And I, with the historians as well, knowing the past helps you avoid the same mistakes. Absolutely. So yeah, so look, I come from a generation that could afford to get a liberal arts degree and not leave college, $250,000 in debt with no job prospects. I left college with no job prospects because I had a Russian degree. And I mean, I'd done some, work, mostly part-time work for, in Russia doing different things. And, I'd interviewed with, the NSA and CIA and places like that. But, I had to take unemployment until the internet came around. And it was the tech stuff that I learned in the humanities lab, taught myself HyperCard and how to do the internet, taught myself HTML by reading the specs, while working in the humanities computing lab, teaching language software. But I got to learn all the tech skills along the way, and I taught myself those things, but I had access to computers to learn them. But then my core instruction was in French and Russian and stuff, and history, honors history. And so when I took that whole mess and then the internet came out, they made me director of sales for the internet community for the FiberNet. And I was also webmaster. And then I was able to go up into another state and get a job as a developer because I taught myself Perl. I literally bought Perl in 21 days while I was in Russia. I read it, and I bought it in America and read it. And I taught myself Perl because I knew that's where technology was going. And I knew that I could go learn whenever I needed to. And if there's one thing the liberal arts will teach you, it's how to get to the point fast, because you can't read, War and Peace in 2 weeks or whatever in Russian. You learn to get by and figure out how to distill the importance of the thing and learn fast and all. So that's my take on it. I mean, it's a very unpopular take. Most people are not pushing liberal arts today because of the cost of education. But if you're going to a community college that is going to give you a degree, and they just, all they're really doing is assigning you a bunch of reading and giving you a rubber stamp on a degree, and you're just getting the degree because you want to get past the front door, because companies like Bosch won't even talk to you unless you have a university degree, period. Then yeah, that's what I would do. Plus I think that jives well with what a lot of people are suffering from right now. There's a lot of Zoomers that are getting beat up by people like Bill Maher because they are lazy and they're doing travel, streaming, and the bottom line is they're still looking for meaning, and a lot of people are talking about meaning right now. The reason that Jordan Peterson is blowing the fuck up in popularity is because that's his message. You might not like Jordan Peterson. There's so many things about Jordan Peterson that I disagree with. Oh my God, I watched a full debate between Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris while I was putting the rack together the other day. And I'm a huge Sam Harris fan, so I'll just put that out there. And it was very interesting. And I mean, Peterson just was downright foolish on several occasions. His definition of God, for example, is so convoluted it takes 40 minutes to tell you, when really what he means is, I don't believe in God, I believe in the idea of God, and we need to keep our moral center and blah blah blah. But I can't tell you that because I'll put off too many of the people that listen to me because I'm a voice of conservatism and morality and responsibility, and the conservative movement, which is mostly Christian, really loves that. So I can't tell them I don't believe in Jesus. I have to have a 40-minute conversation with them about why I don't believe in Jesus, and I actually believe in all the things that Jesus believed in and pushed. I'm basically a Jeffersonian Christian who, Jefferson, people don't know this, but he cut all the passages of Christ's divinity out of the Bible and made the Jeffersonian Bible. So it's complicated, but there's so much about Peterson that I disagree with, particularly all his stuff about transgender. Surprisingly, though, I agree with his whole pronouns position, which is it's too fucking confusing, and we missed an opportunity where we could have reinvented a portion of our language. Instead, we made it further complicated. That's really his main position there. It's not that he hates trans people until he started hating trans people because they were attacking him, which I think kind of pushed him to hate trans people more than he probably would have initially. He's a very, very controversial figure, mostly for that. And I don't agree with any part of him on that. But the reason Peterson is so popular, and this is why, when somebody asked me what I thought of him, to me, more and more Christian. Oh yeah, he's not Christian. No, Peterson is not Christian at all. He's a plain out atheist. And when he talks to Sam, this really great debate, Sam pushes him on it and says, "Why don't you just say you don't believe in Jesus?" And he's, yeah. So, I know people who have been through immense suffering usually have more of a spiritual slant. And I think Peterson tries really hard to be a spiritual person. I think both Harris and Peterson are so busy pumping up their audiences that and using bombastic, verbose speech that has no relevance whatsoever other than to promote the perception of their supreme intellects, that I'm not attracted to that at all. I watched The Four Horsemen with Dawkins and Russell and the gang, and I as much as I appreciate what they have to say, I am not, and I am a huge fan of language, but I am not a fan of unnecessary use of bombastic language for any reason whatsoever. So I do think it's an art form to craft, a wonderful sentence. And I really get off on, the old school kind of, British English, where there was nothing else to do. So people constructed really crazy, amazing sentences out of it instead of using more simplified nouns and verbs and things. And so when I hear Peterson and Sam go at it, I appreciate the simplicity in it when Sam says, "Can't you just tell us, this or that?" But at the same time, both of these people Sam wouldn't even talk to Peterson until his star rose or he blew up, right? He wouldn't even entertain a conversation with him because that's how he operates. He's like, a book writer, he's an author, he's an influencer, at a completely different level. And I do largely agree with what he says, but at the same, it's the whole method of it. Like, do you think Sam Harris would ever be seen in a messy ass room like this? And this is not part of my persona that I'm crafting. This is just who I am. So I wish more of the people that were having these conversations would have them. None of these people would ever deemed to be seen on Twitch, because Twitch is like the bottom of the barrel when it comes to like intellectual discourse, according to them. And Bill Maher regularly makes fun of things like streaming and content creators, stuff like that. And I think that they're totally missing the boat, because this is where people are actually having conversations. And while they're playing games, people are doing their work. They're doing their homework while they're playing Warcraft. At least they started doing that from 2007 or so. And religious people won't listen to them. I think that's probably true. Yeah. Ideology around the belief in evolution is a social term. So it's a conservative advice for a reason. But the main point I was trying to make with Peterson is that the reason he's blowing up is the same reason that Viktor Frankl's book Unheard Cry for Meaning also blew up. Is, first of all, he operates in the social media sphere, which is, and Norm Macdonald makes fun of Bill Maher. No one's watching me. Yeah, nobody does mainstream media. I mean, anybody paying attention. Look, the one thing I absolutely 100% agree with Trump on is the media. The media has gone off the rails. The CNN president came out and said, Trump's not good for our country, but he's really great for ratings. He's on the book saying that. And he laughed it off as if it was no big deal. Meanwhile, our entire democracy is crumbling before our eyes because of all the inflammatory dialogue that's happening. Man's Search for Meaning. There's Unhide Cried for Meaning and there's Search for Meaning. Yeah, there's two different ones. They're both really good. Yeah. And I mean, that's, if you haven't read it, you really need to. Those are really, really great. And that's propaganda BS. A lot of people are getting their news from comedians. Actually, one of my favorite things about V for Vendetta, from the Wachowski sisters, I think they were brothers at the time, but is the portrayal of the comedian as one of the secondary heroes, not the main protagonist, but he's like one of the secondary heroes because he has the courage to do one of those. I actually find a lot of heroism, frankly, in people like Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert, the comedians who try their hardest to take the edge off so that we'll actually listen and look around and see what's happening. And do they tend to be progressive? Yeah, the comedians tend to be progressive because they have to be. The conservatives tend to be more formal. The William F. Buckleys of the world and those types. And by the way, I was a huge William F. Buckley fan for a long time. I mean, he comes from a different era. He obviously has, the problems of that era built into him. That's actually one of the things about Peterson's argument that I really, really buy into. Peterson does talk a lot about judging the past with the measuring stick of the future, and I find that to be disingenuous. It's and we cannot judge. Look, do I excuse it? No, I am not excusing it. I'm just saying that you look, you would not judge your teenage self today. I mean, if people, I would be absolutely appalled and mortified if people judged the man I am today, the person I am today, based on what I did when I was 20 or what I did when I was, even 40. I'm a 100% different person now in every level. I have learned so much. There have been serious politicians. Obama was against gay marriage for most of his life, and he grew and he realized, and he's like, well, I came around kind of like I did. A lot of people have. So when we look at the history and we like, oh, look at how stupid they were and blah blah blah. I don't think that's fair. I think we have to look back and go, look, slavery was fucking horrible, but the entire world was filled with slavery, and we need to learn never to do that again. But we need to. I just think that we need to progress and not. And I do agree with that. I do agree with that part anyway. So that's something that when we looked at the past, I don't think we should say it was okay, but. This is Coffee Talk. I have talked way over my time limit for my first day. Maybe I got to watch out for that. It seems that I have more power to talk in the morning than at night, which is scary. So I think more that right now a lot of people in despair are wanting something different, and Jordan's giving it. Yeah, that's really what's happening. And by the way, I've said this over and over and over again. Accepting what somebody says or what their heartfelt belief about a certain thing does not mean that you condone the other things that they do. Let me give you an example. Richard Stallman. All right. One of the most controversial figures in all of technology in the Linux world. And if you know anything about Richard Stallman, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Steve Jobs. Martin Luther King, for God's sake. I mean, there are so many people in history that you can agree with, and as I said, Trump. I use that Trump example on the ideas. You can agree with the ideas that come from those people. And the thing that I think is important about this is there's a fine line between giving radical, murderous people a platform on which to communicate to the rest of the world their sick ideas, and exchanging in discourse. The very fact that Sam Harris even sits at the table with Jordan Peterson, to me is a big deal. Because I don't know that I could. There are certain people that I could not engage with. If I were in their presence, I would do everything in my power to get out of the room as fast as possible. And I don't know. I think that might be a weakness that I need to work on. I think we need to be able to have a dialogue, and that if anything, we should err on the side of choosing a dialogue over exclusion and cancellation and all of that, because otherwise we're not even going to have a dialogue. Separate the art from the crap it grew out of. Yeah. Hitler was a huge Nietzsche fan. Did you know that? And I'm a huge Nietzsche fan too on many things. Many things that Nietzsche said I totally agree with. Yeah, but Hitler totally misinterpreted Nietzsche on the Ubermensch and all that stuff. And I mean, it's really, really interesting because, let's different people who are political, let's say one thing, but doing completely different. Yeah, hypocrites. Yeah. You know what? There's a difference between being a hypocrite and being somebody who believes in something but struggles to live by that belief. And that would be me on most things. I'm always saying, don't get mad, get busy, right? How many times do I successfully do that? Or more importantly, how many times do I fail? and I go off on somebody and I make a personal attack, or it's for all the world to see here on Twitch, and you get to see me lose my shit, right? So I just want to that's just a cautionary point. There's hypocrites who willfully go against what they say and lie about it. You know, there's people who make they willfully lie about those things, right? And then there's other people who make, really, they try really hard to live by what they preach, but they fail but they recognize that it's a value. I mean, the old saying, church is for the sinners, not for those that are perfect. And so people sit in church and they judge all the people sitting in church who they've seen sin all week. And the better thing to think is, well, they're here. They're not here to tell you that they're a good person. They're here because they're trying to listen to things that's going to make them be a better person. And that to me is important. We need to, and frankly, yeah. I mean, what did Hillary Clinton say about Trump when he won? She goes, he deserves our respect and he deserves a chance to try. And despite all of the vitriol between them on everything, this is what makes, I mean, Hillary's got a lot of flaws in my opinion, but for her to come forward and actually say, he's our elected president at this moment, and we need to give him a chance. Now, of course, he failed his chance in the first 2 weeks. But the idea that we need to be heard out and we need to give people chances and stuff, I think that we're just too quick to cancel at the same time that we're too quick to be offended. And that would go for me. I mean, people were asking me about Jordan Peterson, and I did maybe 10 minutes of research on him, read his 12-step thing, and I'm like, this guy's this derivative hack who's just like retelling the same things we've already known forever and getting hair plugs and making fun of trans people on Twitter. He actually is very regretful for the stuff that he did on Twitter. He didn't say so explicitly, which would have made it won more points with me in my book. But he said his answer to the whole Twitter stuff, when point blank asked, what's up with you on Twitter? You're kind of an asshole. He said, Twitter makes everybody into assholes, essentially. He used very flowery speech to say that. But he goes, yeah, Twitter makes everybody assholes, and I've chosen to get back off of it. And he didn't say I was an asshole and I was wrong for attacking that person individually for their decision to become trans, which is fucking horrible. But he did say that Twitter brings out the worst in us, and I have a feeling that I don't know, but he does have a huge fucking ego. So does Sam. So does Dawkins. So do I. But what's that? Virtue signaling is a national sport. Yeah. He got so much hate over that, and I was guilty of it too. I mean, I deliberately look. You got to be careful because sophistry is a very dangerous thing. Sophistry is the act of like soft peddling lies and things by enshrouding them in flowery speech and language and a strong rhetorical style. And he says things like, "Oh, I'm not a rhetoricist. That's not my thing." And I'm like, that's such bullshit. I mean, the guy, any human being who raises to that much attention becomes subject to the same problems that happen to any cult leader. They start to buy into their own bullshit. And that goes for me. It goes for anybody. And I've been studying cults forever since this whole Mormon thing I was in. And they start to buy into their own bullshit. And then it becomes so dogmatic with them that they can't even contradict themselves and have their ego not be bruised. And you know it because there's times when I've done that, when I've gotten so into a specific opinion and someone's like, well, no, actually there's this other thing. I'm like, damn. And it hurts because you were so vehement about the other thing. And like, well, wait a second. Didn't you just make a huge video ranting about how awesome this thing was? And now you're like totally throwing it in the toilet, like literally a week later. I'm like, yeah, I know it hurts. And my ego takes a beating all of the time because of that, because I'm so wrong on so many things. But I have to tell myself that that's how the scientific method works. The scientific method, the only sure source of truth in the universe, has given us everything that's been great. It's also, when it's done properly, we'll say, but it's also given us a bunch of shit that we've had to throw out and go, no, we got to do this now. And nobody, lamented that. There have been cases where scientists were so dogmatic about their position that it became a religion for them. Their ego was associated with it. So, such as Einstein. Einstein died trying to disprove what he was totally wrong about. I mean, he was a great guy. I mean, he did a lot of great discoveries, but he was dead fucking wrong on photonic entanglement. Completely wrong. Like totally wrong, and unwilling to admit it until he died. he spent his last days fighting against the spooky, uh, objective evidence of photonic entanglement that he saw, and he hated admitting that Niels Bohr was correct. The Copenhagen theory. He hated it. He hated it. He was like, no, I am going to prove this wrong, goddammit. And he died not being able to do so, but he was dead set on it. He could not open his eyes and look at the objective evidence. Even Einstein couldn't say, I was wrong. He couldn't do it. Not at that point, because he'd become so, he was going to die on that hill, man. Yeah. No, nobody liked it. It was so terrifying that you might not actually know the reason for something. Anyway, I've been having a lot of time just rambling on. I figured this was what Coffee Talk would sort of become. If just listening to me ramble on is not your thing, I understand. But I am going to be here for that. I think that Coffee Talk is going to be more about rambling, and QCA is going to be more about answering specific questions the way things are going. So having concluded this Coffee Talk, I think that we're going to go ahead and make that decision, so that according to the schedule here, the Coffee Talk will be mostly me, in the middle of Hyde Park, rambling and commenting on comments and standing up on my soapbox and doing those things, and talking about the news of the day. It will be highly opinionated. It's just part of my nature. And the QCA, I think I'm going to make that more focused on you and your specific questions. A lot of the ranting and soapboxing is going to be triggered by, legitimate concerns and questions that come up in the chat. But QCA is going to be more about, let's get the answers as fast as we can. And then what I'll do is I'll when I start to soapbox during QCA, I can kind of put that aside and say, okay, if you want to hear the full rant on this, tune in to tomorrow's Coffee Talk, where I'm going to rant for 30 minutes on this particular topic, because I do love ranting. I like it, mostly because I like the feedback that causes me to expand my position and have something of a dialogue. That is the reason I do it, is to challenge myself. And so, I mean, I wouldn't do this at all if there weren't something in it for me. And that's what it's up. Take care, Curious Elk. Writing test pack, yes. And yes, I had way more inputs than this chat. But the chat is here, and so sometimes they'll cause me to reflect. Ooh, you got Mr. Crumbs, you found a product there. You found it. What's it called? Some kind of product. Security onion, huh? Let me put that in the QCA. I'll go answer that. So, what are your thoughts on this product? Another thing about the QCA is that I can kind of research the questions before we do them now. Sometimes I answer them. Sometimes I answer them directly in the chat in a rather long-winded way before we ever get to the actual video. And I want to get better at doing that, because I think that'll make the time, there'll be less hemming and hawing. So hopefully I'm not going to ever promise you an organized forum, but I'll generally know going into it what the topic is, but with the freedom to go down any rabbit hole I want to. So that's fun. And believe it or not, a lot of that was started by this conversation about cybersecurity and online certifications. And, that inevitably became a conversation about what do you want to do in the world, and what do we need, and why do we need cybersecurity, and then, careers. And then it became a conversation about the humanities and majoring in liberal arts and why that matters. And then, of course, that always ends up a conversation about the nature of existence and meaning and moral responsibility, and debates between Sam and George and stuff like that. So this has been really fun. Unfortunately, we're gonna go raid somebody now. So say goodbye to the YouTubers out there. Everybody wave. Goodbye, YouTubers.